Chapter 91 White Fang's Past. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Master Craftsman was not angry when he saw Xia Li like this. The kindness shown on his face made Xia Li a little strange. However, this was also a good thing, so Xia Li didn't say much. Xiao Tetsuya, you have to remember, don't underestimate any ninja in Konoha. The master of craftsmanship taught his grandson with a smile. He has seen a lot in his life, and he also knows some particularly evil ninjas. Huh? Grandpa, have you seen ninjas before? Toruya asked curiously. Well, when I was your age, I met a very young ninja. Master Craftsman said with a nostalgic look on his face and stopped talking. Grandpa, come on, don't be distracted. Ingenuity's eyes lit up, but before his curiosity was satisfied, he found that there was no follow-up, and he suddenly became dissatisfied. Okay, I'll tell you. Master Craftsman smiled again after coming back to his senses, looked at Xia Li, and said, the ninja I met also carried a short sword on his back and had short silver hair. Xia Li couldn't help but pause at this time. This description is. He is very, very strong. I doubted the opponent's strength like you did at first, but he soon proved his strength. Master Craftsman said and couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that this was the first time that Toru was hearing Master Craftsman say this. His curiosity was completely aroused and he quickly asked, who is that ninja? Is he still in Konoha? I don't know his name, but I know his subsequent name, which is very famous and is called Konoha White Fang. Master Craftsman said. Wow, so handsome. Xia Li was not surprised when he was there. He had already guessed it after hearing the description from the Master of Craftsmanship, and it was indeed the case. But it's a pity that Konoha White Fang seems to have lost his life due to some things. Master Craftsman couldn't help but sigh as he spoke, feeling a little sad. Grandpa, can you tell me about him? Jiangxin Che also felt a little sentimental, and asked Master Jiangxin. It seems that the empathy seems to be a bit too strong, and also too naive. It seems that it is really our well-protected, Xia Li thought for a while. The Iron Kingdom didn't seem to have a strong presence in the original work. It was also the location of the Five Shadows Conference. The neutral country should have a better environment than the ninjas, maybe. The Master of Craftsmanship also talked about the past things with the craftsmen, especially some things about White Fang, which made the craftsman marvel. Young man, what's your name? We should get along for a while in the future, and I still need to know your name. After the Master of Craftsmanship finally got rid of his grandson's entanglement, he saw Xia Li who had been silent over there and couldn't help but ask. Well, call me Mo-ing, Master. Xia Li opened her eyes, her tone was indifferent and floating, this was her voice in a state of emptiness and darkness. Okay, if I tell you, you can continue to call me Master. As for my grandson, you can just call me Che. Master Craftsman nodded and said. Mo-ing, are you as powerful as Lord White Fang? At this time, Toruya couldn't help but ask. It is impossible for me to compare with Master White Fang, but if you are talking about the White Fang at that time, I am probably stronger. Xia Li said directly. Wow, that's amazing. After hearing this, Master Craftsman looked at Xia Li and shook his head. He couldn't tell the difference, but it would be good if it was true. At least safety would be guaranteed. Someone is coming, Che, you should hide. Xia Li suddenly said. Huh? Cheru couldn't help but look at his grandfather. Why don't you listen to Mo-ing and hide? Master Craftsman said with a solemn expression. Okay. Immediately, Ingenuity Toru also hid, and it seemed that he was used to it. Soon, there was a knock on the door. Who is it? Master Craftsman couldn't help but be surprised. He looked at Xia Li next to him, who was dressed similarly to his grandson, and felt a little more at ease. Just this little thing, he couldn't help but believe in Xia Li's strength even more. In the past, White Fang didn't seem to know that someone was coming so far in advance. Master, I have been arranged by the captain to deliver you fruit. A voice that was familiar to Master Craftsman came from outside the carriage. Well, just put it in front of the car. Thank you, Captain, for me. Master Craftsman said. Okay. After a long time, Master Craftsman looked at Xia Li. Xia Li nodded and said, "We have gone far." Master Craftsman breathed a sigh of relief, while Xia Li also opened the door, took the fruits in, and said, "It's best not to eat them." Well, it should be fine. I know the owner of that voice. Master Craftsman wanted to say that you were too cautious, but after looking at Xia Li and his grandson, who were about the same age, he couldn't help but sigh. Is this a ninja? I don't have a foolproof way to detect toxins at the moment. Xia Li replied. Moing, how did you know someone was coming? At this time, Jiang Xincha also walked out. He was completely convinced and looked at Xia Li with admiration. Feeling. After Moing finished speaking, he walked aside without saying anything more. As for those fruits, there was a high probability that they would be fine. He actually checked them, but he was not confident about his medical level, so he did not confirm it. Result. Grandpa, shall we eat? Master Jingxin Che also looked at these fresh fruits and was a little greedy, but now he was very convinced of Xia Li and was a little hesitant. Eat it, it should be fine. It's useless for them to have a dead old man. Master Jingxin said with a smile. Xia Li also paused beside him, his eyes flashed, as if it was true. In the following time, Master Jingxin Che also wanted to ask Xia Li many things, but Master Jingxin pulled him back. He could see that Xia Li didn't want to be disturbed by others. Master Jingxin looked at the difference between his grandson and Xia Li, and felt that his grandson was still more lovely. Xia Li and White Fang were like this at that time when they were young. Are all ninjas so cruel? Xia Li was also sensing the situation of this team at this time. They were basically ordinary people, so his chakra perception in the state of emptiness was basically useless, but he could still sense the movements made by those ordinary people. However, judging by movement and stillness requires rich experience, and it may be wrong. In addition, there are 4 chakra fluctuations. They are scattered around the convoy, guarding the convoy in a cross shape. They should be the team sent by Konoha. If this amount of chakra is not released, it is difficult to determine, but it is probably a chunin with 3 genin. Xia Li also found out after joining the UMBU that his previous idea was still a bit problematic, because most of the students who graduated were not even special jonin. After sensing these, Xia Li also opened his eyes, looked at the samurai over there from the window, looked at the long swords in their hands, and touched his own sword. Although the fighting methods of samurai and ninja are very different, he seems to be able to learn a little swordsmanship. After all, his chakra amount is too wasteful to use Flying Thunder God to receive Rasengan, and it is often unnecessary. If his sword can be stronger, he may not need to use Rasengan. In addition, swordsmanship is not just swordsmanship. First learn the basics, and then add some of your own chakra application. Perhaps, you can try it. Xia Li made a decision. Moreover, he now has an advantage. Can't he pretend to be Master Chung? If he wants to learn, there should be many people willing to teach him, because he can make friends with the Master of Mastery. Chapter 92 Swordsmanship and Enemy Traces. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. However, Xia Li's idea soon disappeared, not because he gave up learning swordsmanship, but because he found that he could not find a suitable teacher at all. While the convoy was resting, he also carefully observed the various warriors in the convoy. Then I discovered that these warriors were really a bit dull. Most of them had little strength and loud voices, and after observation, it was found that these warriors were targeting the 4 Konoha ninjas on the surface, which made Xia Li frown. Anyway, these warriors did not meet Xia Li's requirements at all. Instead of learning swordsmanship from such a samurai, he might as well wait until he returns to Konoha to exchange for some swordsmanship with the merit he accumulated from doing tasks in ANBU these days. However, when Xia Li recalled the warriors in her memory, it was probably not the warriors' problem, but simply the problem of these people. No matter what profession, there would always be some bad apples. Xia Li couldn't remember much about Konoha's swordsmanship. It seemed that few people used swords. There seemed to be some short-lived ghost. Dance of the crescent moon. But Xia Li didn't remember that thing very well. It was much different from the Yan Hui he remembered as the uncle janitor standing on the high stairs. Furthermore, there was Hitaki's swordsmanship, but unfortunately that thing was probably not something Xia Li could obtain now. Therefore, for now, it is not a bad idea to abandon the swordsmanship for the time being and study the combination of ninjutsu and swords first. Xia Li resigned somewhat helplessly. He felt that it would be better to learn swordsmanship first, since there was no one to teach him. Xia Li took off the long knife and held the handle in his hand. However, Xia Li's action frightened Master Craftsman, and he couldn't help but ask, "Moing, are there any enemies coming?" "No, I need to practice and keep my feel." Xia Li didn't say much. "Oh, but this space?" Master Craftsman asked hesitantly. "After all, although this carriage is the largest, there is still not enough space to swing a sword." "Don't worry, I'm measured." Xia Li replied. "Okay, I won't disturb my little friend's practice." Master Craftsman felt relieved. Ingenious Toru looked at the sword in Xia Li's hand curiously. Soon, he lost interest and said, "It's just an ordinary sword. I thought there was something special about ninja weapons. Look, it doesn't look as good as what I made." Xia Li was stunned for a moment, but said nothing. He was very comfortable with this sword, and it was specially chosen for him by the third generation. However, Tetsuya's status as a craftsman did make him qualified to say so. "I just don't know how the third generation will react if they know this evaluation." "Do you feel that you have no vision?" At this time, Xia Li heard Jiang Xinsha also say something. "If you have time one day, come to the Kingdom of Iron and find me, and I will make you a sword better than this." Immediately, Xia Li's eyes fell on Ingenuity Che. Although these words were probably said casually, but... "That's what you said. I'll find you later with the materials." A smile appeared on Xia Li's lips. Toru was startled, so he just said it casually, but the words were already out of his mouth. If he said it again, wouldn't it be embarrassing for him? So I could only hold my neck and agreed. "Then this is for you, don't lose it." Xia Li took out a flying thunder god kunai at this time and handed it to ingenious Tetsuya. Toru Takuya took it curiously and played with it in his hands. Disgust soon appeared on his face. The craftsmanship of this thing was too rough. When Tetsuya was about to say something, he was stopped by Master Tetsuya and said seriously, "Tetsuya, keep it well and don't lose it." Ingenious Toru was slightly startled, as if he understood something, and then nodded. Time passed slowly, and the team did not encounter any danger for several days, which also made many people in the team feel a little relieved. Master Jiangshin couldn't stay on the carriage any longer and wanted to get off and walk around, but he was held back by Master Craftsman every time. When he tried to get off secretly, he was directly held down by Xia Li. Now Tatsuya Toru is a little desperate, and he has no enemies, so why should he be so nervous? Xia Li was also happy with this. It would be better if there were no enemies, so as to save trouble. Over the past few days, he had quickly combined his attributes with the sword. In fact, everything is very simple, but Xia Li didn't think much about it before. Now that he has thought about it, with Xia Li's current grasp of morphological changes and property changes, it is naturally not difficult. Of course, the combination is not difficult, but the specific application still needs to be tested in actual combat, and the method and timing of use need to be recaptured. "Moing, can you just let me sneak down and take a walk? It's so late and no one will find out. I will definitely make a super good sword for you in the future." Ingenuity Toru also saw his own house at this time. Grandpa was resting there and couldn't help but come to Xia Li and whisper, "No." Xia Li silently chewed the dry food she brought and said. Suddenly, Tetsuya Takumi's head dropped. His grandfather was so strict, but now he met someone of similar age, and he turned out to be stubborn. However, the next moment, Xia Li's voice sounded again, and this time, Ingenuity Tetsuya's expression changed drastically. "Call your grandpa, something happened." Xia Li looked at the thick night, her face changed slightly. At this time, she seemed to be well prepared. Cold sweat soon broke out on Takuya's forehead, and he staggered towards his grandfather. Xia Li couldn't tell exactly how many people there were. There were about a dozen ninjas, and there were more non-ninjas. They didn't have chakra, so Xia Li couldn't tell them apart. He just knew that there should be quite a few. Xia Li thought about it, then took out the wooden Tianzong brand alarm, pressed the button, and threw it over the middle of the team. The next moment, a long beep sounded above the team, and this long beep not only woke up the people in the transport team, causing them to panic and curse, but also startled those who were hiding in the dark and preparing to attack the transport team. Have they been exposed? How were they exposed? What they didn't know was that if they were more careful, they might be able to hide it from Xia Li, but if they brought a ninja with them, and the ninja extracted chakra, then Xia Li would basically be unable to hide it. However, it is natural for a ninja to extract chakra. After all, if you want to do this kind of thing, you must extract some chakra in advance in case of emergency. The Tianzong team was not surprised, because they also found those people approaching the transport team. They were ready to send out a warning, but they didn't expect Xia Li to get ahead of them. In this regard, they can only say, it's really worthy of MOing. This perception is amazing every time. The next moment, the lights of the transport team were brightly lit, and the people hiding in the dark saw that the sneak attack failed, so they might as well take action directly while there was some turmoil, so they rushed out directly, and the Tianzong team also began their actions. Chapter 93 Bloody Night. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. You guys stay in the carriage and don't move around. I'll go out and take a look. Xia Li said at this time. Okay, be careful. Master Craftsman also said after hearing this. He had also put on his clothes in a hurry. It seems that he has really experienced a lot and is very calm when facing this kind of thing. Xia Li nodded, looked at the slightly panicked Toriya Takumi, and said, take the kunai I gave you with you. After saying that, Xia Li's figure disappeared into the carriage. Takumi Takuya was stunned when he heard this, and then he found the kunai, which was very rough in his eyes. He held it tightly in his hand, his palms were full of sweat, and the master Takumi Takuya also grabbed Takumi Takuya at this time. He felt relieved. In the dark night sky, the moon has been submerged in clouds and fog. Xia Li appeared on the roof of the carriage and frowned as he looked at the surrounding situation. Sure enough, there was still something wrong with his perception, because the area where the convoy is located has been wrapped in thick fog. This time and concentration should be the fog shadow technique of fog shadow. Xia Li couldn't detect this thick fog with his perception. Fortunately, his vision didn't have much impact on Xia Li, and his perception was enough to make up for it. Xia Li quickly looked around and could vaguely see some figures, as well as some vague lights and fires, but there were more noises, curses, and various cries. There is a big problem. There are no warriors guarding their carriage. And the groom who had been pulling the horse down below seemed to have escaped long ago. Didn't Master Craftsman bribe those warriors? Xia Li thought about Master Craftsman's usual actions. No, there should be some. But at this time, those warriors probably had too much to take care of themselves. It would be a good thing if they didn't run away directly. As expected, he couldn't count on these warriors. After Xia Li sighed, he pulled out his sword, because the carriage was still a bit big and would be too easy to be targeted. No, some desperados are already eyeing this carriage. Xia Li condensed a little chakra into his feet, and the next moment, he took action. He just used some chakra to increase his speed. These guys who were not ninjas were not worthy of him wasting too much chakra. At this time, Xia Li had also judged the other party's position through the sound of his footsteps. It seemed that the other party had not noticed him yet. A smile appeared at the corner of Xia Li's mouth and he faced him head-on. This thick fog is a source of panic for the people in the convoy, but it is also true for these desperados. They are just competing to see who is less panicked. But what about perceptual ninjas? I can know your existence, but you don't know I'm there. In an instant, Xia Li had already rushed in front of a desperado, and the speed made the other person's eyes shrink violently. However, before he could react, he saw the sharp sword light flashing past, and he was gone. The figure could no longer be seen, and his head slowly fell. Xia Li danced like a butterfly in the crowd. Every time he rushed in front of the opponent, he would directly strike with one strike. There was no option for a second strike, and no one on the opponent could react. At most, they only felt someone rushing over, but when they noticed it, Xia Li had already appeared in front of them, and the knife had already landed on his neck. You. Xia Li looked at the last person in front of him, slowly put away the knife, and turned back to the roof of the car. These people only needed to raise the knife and swing it, and did not need to use the sword skills they had combined before. The man was holding his neck, and the next moment, his body and head were separated, and he didn't even have a chance to scream. Xia Li thought about it. The art of fog and shadow always felt like a blessing to him. Even fog and shadow could not compare with him. After all, the heavy fog had no effect on him. Fog and shadow itself would also be affected, but he was just used to it. It's just that the impact was less in the end. However, this technique belongs to carrying side and is really difficult to learn. It's a pity that he can't find a teammate from carrying side. Xia Li sniffed the smell of blood and burning that gradually rose in the air. After feeling several more figures approaching, she tightened her grip on the handle of the knife. Today, it seems, is destined to be a bloody night. After a while, Xia Li was still standing on the roof of the carriage, but there were already dozens of corpses hidden by the thick fog around the carriage. Mo-ing, how is the situation outside? Master Craftsman was unaware of the situation outside in the carriage. After waiting for a long time and there was no movement at all, he finally couldn't help but ask. Xia Li felt the sound of footsteps at this time, and it seemed that some of them had also discovered this place, but they seemed to be frightened by the number of corpses here, so they diverted. After all, the primary target of these desperados was the materials transported by the transportation team. It should be much safer now. Xia Li walked into the carriage, looked at the nervous Master Craftsman and the craftsman Tetsuya who was holding Master Craftsman's hand and was unwilling to let go, and said, "It's okay, but Master, it seems that none of the warriors you bribed are here." Suddenly, Master Craftsman's face turned pale, and then he thought of something and looked at Xia Li. "Well, as long as I'm here, nothing will happen," Xia Li said with strong confidence. He wanted to protect people with the flying thunder god, who could kill him. "Then I'll leave it to you." Master Craftsman couldn't help but use honorifics to such a young Xia Li. "In the future, if you have any ninja tools you want to build, you can come to us, grandson and grandpa." "Okay." Xia Li nodded, his eyes lit up. He probably understood the meaning of the third generation's assignment of this task. This was to make him friends with the master of craftsmanship. "So, the teammates of the Tenzo team," Xia Li paused. "Not to mention Tenzo's would release, the hyena should be from the Inuzuka family. The fox can obtain so many medical supplies, and it is estimated that it has a close relationship with the medical department." Thinking about it this way, the third generation really has good intentions for him. Xia Li sighed in his heart, walked out of the carriage again, came to the roof, and then raised his eyebrows, as if a ninja finally came. After all, in Xia Li's perception, the captain had actually met the ninjas of the Mist Ninja, but his mission was to protect the master of craftsmanship and his grandson, so he had no support and didn't know the specific situation. Now that there are ninjas coming, it should not be easy to imagine it as easy as before. Xia Li clenched the handle of the knife. "Well, why are there so many corpses here? The people the captain said they wanted to protect are not dead." At this time, a voice sounded. Suddenly, Xia Li also relaxed a little, because the owner of this voice was a member of the team in the Open of Konoha. At this time, Xia Li discovered another weakness of his perception, that is, although the chakra he sensed was very clear, he could not tell who the owner of the chakra was. Sometimes it is possible to judge based on the amount of chakra, but there will definitely be errors. It seems that after returning, we have to study whether there is a way to solve this problem. However, at this time, Xia Li thought about it and took out the forehead protector of Konoha and tied it on his head. At this time, the fog also slowly dissipated. It should be that Tianzong's fight with the caster caused problems in maintaining the ninjutsu, so the obscured moonlight finally passed through the fog and sprinkled on Xia Li, who was standing at the highest point of the carriage, and the three Konoha genin also found the figure standing at the highest point. They saw that the tight black clothes, the same Konoha forehead protector on their heads, and the blood-stained long sword in his hands, and the bright moon behind the other party, looked extremely mysterious and powerful. The most important thing is that he has been watching them from the beginning. P.S. Well, I can control my mental activities, but being long-winded. This is difficult. I have already formed a habit. I have always known that I am not very good at fighting, so I have actually been avoiding writing about it, but I still feel that fighting plots are needed. I will practice more later, and I hope you can bear with me. Thank you. The plot of the Umbu is almost done, mainly to expand the network and overuse. I can't skip the medicine and flying thunder god ninja tools and get them directly. Chapter 94 The Fog Dissipates. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Under the moonlight, Xia Li stared at the three genin, looking at their alert eyes. It was pretty good, at least they were not pure newbies, and they didn't believe him just because they were protecting their foreheads. Who are you? The leading genin raised the kunai in his hand after he realized what he was doing and stared at Xia Li and asked. Team Tianzong. Xia Li replied calmly. Suddenly, the genin breathed a sigh of relief and continued to ask, how is the situation now? Is Master Craftsman okay? It's okay, but you can just watch around the carriage. You are not allowed to enter. Xia Li said lightly. Although he could determine the identity of the other party, what if there was a traitor? Why? The female ninja asked angrily. Because I don't believe you. Xia Li replied directly. The female ninja was anxious and wanted to continue speaking, but was stopped by the two people next to her. In their eyes, the person in front of them is probably a ruthless person. Those corpses just now were probably chopped by the other party. It's okay for their teammate to make trouble in the team, but they can't make trouble in front of this person. The other party may really not be polite to them, as the long knife that is still bleeding can prove it. Then can we meet the master craftsman and prove what you said? At this time, another ninja said. As soon as he finished speaking, the door of the carriage was also opened, and the master of craftsmanship pulled the craftsman Toru out, looked at Xia Li on the roof of the car, and then looked at the three genin over there and said, "Moe my friend, I've caused you trouble, can you prove it now?" That's enough. The genin breathed a sigh of relief after seeing Master Craftsman, and said, "We will stay by the side, Master Craftsman, don't worry, as long as we are here, nothing will happen." Yeah. Master Craftsman was a little perfunctory. He was more willing to believe Xia Li than them, because he also heard the noise outside, but their carriage didn't even touch the slightest movement, so it can be seen that Xia Li's strength was stronger than he imagined. After proving it, go back. Xia Li frowned before she could finish her words, because at this time, the mist and shadow technique had completely dissipated. At this time, everyone present could see clearly that there were dozens of corpses lying on the ground around their carriage. The female ninja who was still angry was no longer angry. She stared blankly at this scene. She was not stupid. She could also figure out who did this. She looked at Xia Li with fear in her eyes. At this time, she thought of her impulse just now and couldn't help but trembled. Fortunately, her teammates stopped her, otherwise the other party would not have really killed her. At this time, the master of craftsmanship also looked at Xia Li blankly. He did not expect that the child who seemed to be a little lonely would be so ruthless. Moreover, there was no movement at all. It turned out to be because everyone who came close was killed by the other party. At this time, the master of craftsmanship was also a little grateful. Konoha actually sent such a strong ninja to protect him, and the craftsmanship Tetsuya at his hand naturally saw this scene. He was a little scared, but also more worship. If it weren't for the bad timing, I think ingenuity would have already pounced on him to beg his younger brother. Go back. Xia Li said. Okay, thank you, little friend. Master Craftsman also pulled Craftsman Toru back into the carriage. Xia Li looked at the scene around him. Many carriages had overturned, and many were on fire. Especially those carriages transporting supplies were basically not intact, and those carriages were far away from them. It seemed that they had moved a lot forward after being attacked. But the carriages on Xia Li's side were different. These horses didn't have time to be frightened. At this time, Xia Li put on the mask representing the ANBU, because, he found that many people saw the situation here and gathered here. Now, it's really a bit of trouble. Don't let them get close. Xia Li said to the three genin. But, how to stop this? The three genin also knew that they should not let each other get close, but there were so many people. How to stop it? Persuade. Cripple a few to set an example. Or kill a few if it's really not possible. Anyway, your captain has told you, your mission is actually just to protect the master of craftsmanship, so for you let's take action. Xia Li's somewhat frivolous voice echoed in the air. Everyone felt a little chilled after hearing this. They wanted to refute something, but they didn't dare to refute when looking at the colorless mask. The three genin looked at each other and nodded. They would try their best to stop them. After seeing the three genin start to take action, Xia Li's eyes fell on the distance, which was the main location of the battlefield. The constantly flying would escape ninjutsu showed the intensity of the battle. To be able to fight like this with Tenzo, could he be Kirikage Jounin? Mo-ing. At this time, the hyena and fox finally came over after the fog shadow technique dispersed. You guys are a little slow here. Xia Li said. There is nothing we can do. We are ambushing the ninjas who are coming here. Now that the fog has cleared, there is nothing we can do. The hyena patted the hero of the ambush, Grey Fang, and said. Woof, that the art of fog and shadow is also a bonus for them. After all, they rely on their noses to eat, and sometimes they even actively use smoke bombs to obscure the opponent's vision in battle. Then you guys stay here and I'll go help the captain. Xia Li said after sensing that there were no other ninjas around. Okay. After the hyena and the fox looked at each other, they also understood Xia Li's strength and did not object. This is the remaining ration pills, you take it. At this time, the fox threw a bottle to Xia Li. Xia Li didn't say anything polite, put it away, and his figure disappeared on the roof of the carriage, rushing towards the place where the battle broke out. The master craftsman in the carriage also heard the conversation between Mo-ing and his teammates, and couldn't help but sigh. Although there were more people protecting him, why did he feel less safe than before? Xia Li didn't go directly to Tianzang, because it seemed that he couldn't easily intervene in the battle there, so it was better to find the remaining ninjas. As for their position, as long as the other party appeared in his perception, he could clearly detect the other party's position. Soon, the first ninja from the Mist Village finally appeared in Xia Li's perception. However, the other party had no intention of coming to the master of craftsmanship, but instead rushed to the vehicles carrying supplies, so their purpose was also supplies. At this time, Xia Li also found something wrong. No wonder no ninjas came to find the master of craftsmanship for so long. It seems that it is not just because they were blocked by hyenas and foxes. However, this is not a big deal. After the other party has looted the supplies, they will naturally come to the master of craftsmanship, so it is always right that they are enemies. If they are enemies, then it would be best for him to have dead enemies. Xia Li quietly touched them. These ninjas should be looting supplies in various places, so, they are quite scattered. It is just right to defeat them one by one, and also to test the power of the ninja sword he just combined with the sword and chakra. Chapter 95 Xia Li's Ninja Sword. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Fuck, where did these guys hide the meteorite? Could it have been picked up by those who wanted to die? No, they can't move it either. The Mist Ninja cursed while searching. Suddenly, Mist Ninja seemed to feel something. He looked back, but found nothing. He couldn't help but frowned. Was it an illusion? The Mist Ninja looked at it carefully and then turned back to continue searching. Little did he know that the real crisis had already arrived. Xia Li stared at the Mist Ninja who was searching, and recalled what the other party had just said. Sure enough, he was not coming to Master Craftsman. It seemed that the information was a bit wrong, but it didn't matter. Holding the handle of the knife, Xia Li also started to form seals. Although the formation of seals slowed down due to the presence of the knife, it was still not too slow. Instant technique. Xia Li felt the chakra pouring into the soles of his feet. It was actually the same principle as how he had controlled the chakra pouring into the soles of his feet before. However, after forming the seal, more chakra was gathered, so the explosion speed was faster. Following this familiar trend, the instant body technique may soon be able to be used directly without the need for seals. The next moment, a footprint was left on the ground where Xia Li had stood, and Xia Li had already rushed towards the mist ninja at an extremely fast speed. Just waiting for you. However, the mist ninja seemed to have been prepared, and turned around to throw out the kunai in his hand, but why so fast? The mist ninja's pupils shrank sharply. Even the teleportation technique shouldn't be so fast, right? Speed system. Before he had time to throw the kunai, he found that the opponent was already approaching him. At this time, he could only raise the kunai in a panic and block it in front of him. He looked at the opponent's knife that was already slashing towards him, his forehead. My face was already covered with cold sweat, but luckily I caught up. Xia Li was not surprised when he saw the other party reacting. After all, he was not an ordinary person, especially a mist ninja who had experienced the blood mist. However, Xia Li still raised his hand and slashed down with his knife. Bang! The moment the long sword and kunai collided, Xia Li realized that his strength was not superior. After all, the age gap was still there. Even a surprise attack could only shorten the gap, but the corners of his mouth were still exposed. A smile appeared, because the lightning on the long sword was radiating. The jumping arc was already flowing towards the opponent's body along the mist ninja's kunai. At that moment, the mist ninja opened his eyes wide and tried to avoid it, but the lightning spread so fast that it poured into his body in an instant. The pain and paralysis made it difficult for the mist ninja to move. He could only look at the petite masked figure in front of him. He waved the sword again and wanted to beg for mercy, but found that he could not even open his mouth. The sword light fell, and a head with a strong color of despair fell to the ground. After finishing the killing, Xia Li looked at his sword. The effect was better than he imagined, but since it was his first time, he used a little too much chakra. In fact, it seemed that he didn't need to use that much chakra. He still needs to try more, but there are still a few opportunities to try. Xia Li quietly walked towards the next target with the knife in hand. On the way, he occasionally saw the remaining ordinary people being chased, so he didn't mind helping them, but after helping them deal with the desperados, Xia Li didn't care whether they survived or not. Soon, Xia Li found the second ninja, who still used the teleportation technique plus the acceleration of thunder escape. However, this time, Xia Li still failed in the experiment, because he directly cut off his head without using the thunder-type ninja sword. After all, Xia Li's teleportation technique plus the acceleration of thunder and lightning are fast enough in themselves. Coupled with the advantage of surprise attack, it is normal for the opponent not to react. Although he wanted to try his ninja sword, Xia Li would not give up the raid just because of this. The main goal now was still to kill the enemy, so he could not relax too much. After killing the second mist ninja, Xia Li walked towards the location of the third ninja that he sensed together without even stopping. This time, the opponent finally reacted. Although not as fast as the first one, he still managed to block Xia Li's sword at the last moment. However, Xia Li used a little less chakra this time, allowing the opponent to use the teleportation technique within a few seconds. The instantaneous burst of speed of the teleportation technique meant that even Xia Li was a speed ninja, and there was no way he could do it in the first place. It took a while to keep up. However, fortunately, the opponent was not too strong, and Xia Li was still chasing after him with a knife and chopped off his body. Then, Xia Li couldn't help but frown. It seemed that grasping this amount was really not a simple matter. It seemed that it required sufficient combat experience. Xia Li thought about the current shortcomings of his ninja sword while rushing towards the next target. Xia Li stared at the figure of the last ninja. This ninja seemed to have noticed something. It was not because he was very strong, but because he had not met other companions for so long, and he had already noticed something was wrong. Therefore, at this moment, his spirit was already tense, and he already had the idea of escape. As for Xia Li, after killing nearly 10 mist ninjas one after another, his mastery of the Thunder Ninja sword was still not good enough. Most of these mist ninjas were jonin, and he couldn't even use the ninja sword as a jonin, and there were a few others. An ordinary chunin, but even for ordinary chunin, there are not many that Xia Li can solve with his ninja sword, so this amount is completely insufficient. The last ninja in front of him was probably a chunin, and it seemed that he had already noticed his presence. Under such conditions, hiding in the dark and slowly consuming the opponent's energy was the most energy-saving solution. Unfortunately, Xia Li had to rush to Tianzong, so this solution was passed by him. The lightning ninja sword had been used, so let's change it. This time, Xia Li finally did not choose to sneak attack, but appeared on the top of the tree, looking down at the last mist ninja. The moment the opponent noticed him, Xia Li's figure shook, and then he rushed towards the mist ninja at a very fast speed. The mist ninja opened his eyes wide, so fast. However, the mist ninja's heart was also relaxed a little, because the enemy in the dark is always the most terrible, and the enemy who appears in the open means that he has the possibility of dealing with it. While thinking about the countermeasures to deal with the speed ninja, the mist ninja also swung his sword. However, his thinking was doomed to be useless, because Xia Li's knife fell down, bringing with it invisible and colorless wind. It was the first time that Xia Li used the wind-type ninja sword, and he did not hold back at all. He attached the cutting nature of the wind to the sword body at this moment and exerted it to the maximum. The power of the wind-type ninja sword also made Xia Li completely unexpected, because he only felt a little resistance, and then his knife continued to fall forward, and the blood splashed everywhere made Xia Li unable to react. The mist ninja looked at his sword that was directly cut off, his eyes widened, he fell to the ground in disbelief, split in half. As the culprit, Xia Li was stained with a lot of blood at this time. He himself was also frightened by the power of this sword. He even did not control his body shape when he fell to the end. It was as if you were going to cut the wooden board in front of you, and when you used all your strength, the wooden board suddenly disappeared, and the resistance was completely gone, and the power you used was too late to come back. It was inevitable that your body would lose control, and there was even a risk of injury, but Xia Li was definitely not injured. His reaction was not bad, and he still retracted some of his strength in the end. At this time, Xia Li stared at the body on the ground that he had cut into two pieces, and then felt his current state. He took a breath of cold air at this time. It seems, his path of ninja sword is right. Chapter 96, First Kill of a Jonin. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Xia Li felt her state and felt a little excited for a moment, because what surprised him was not just the power of the ninja sword, but that after defeating these mist ninjas, he still had less than half of his chakra left. From the beginning to now, Xia Li basically didn't waste much time. At most, he easily eliminated many desperados who were chasing ordinary people on the road. If it were before, if Xia Li wanted to finish it so quickly, it would be fine if he was a genin, but if those chunin wanted to finish it quickly, they would have to use the Rasengan. As for the consumption of Rasengan, it is estimated that Xia Li's chakra has already bottomed out and needs to be replenished with Bingliangwen. Now, Xia Li didn't use the Bingliang pills, but there were still some leftovers, which surprised Xia Li. This also included the fact that he wasted a lot of chakra because he was not proficient in using the ninja sword. It can be said that the consumption of the ninja sword is much lower than the consumption of the Rasengan. And it's powerful enough in most cases. In this case, just use the Rasengan as your trump card. After all, he felt that even in the future, he would not be able to use the Rasengan as a basic attack like Naruto did. While feeling excited, Xia Li also silently chewed a soldier's grain pill to restore chakra. It was not that he wasted it, but that he would rush towards the battlefield where Tianzong was, and that was the battlefield for Jonin, so Xia Li couldn't help but have the slightest negligence, so she had to rush there in the best condition. Tenzo looked at the Jonin of the Mist Ninja village in front of him and felt that he was in a bit of trouble. This man's life-saving ability was really good. However, Tianzong was not in a hurry, and slowly used Mutuan to press the opponent's space to avoid. He had an absolute advantage in this battle. If this continues, the Jonin of the Mist Ninja village he will definitely stay. For Tenzu, with the wood release, it is not too difficult to defeat a Jonin, but it is not easy to kill a Jonin, and today, he has such an opportunity. At this time, Tianzong also had to lament the importance of having a powerful teammate. If it were before Xia Li joined, Tianzong would definitely choose more violent methods when facing the enemies of this mist ninja village. Although this method can defeat the opponent faster, it is also easier for the opponent to escape, so it is more likely that the person in front of him will escape, and Tenzo will not choose to continue chasing for his teammates. Now, with the addition of Xia Li, Tianzong doesn't need to be so anxious. He can press forward step by step so steadily, completely blocking the opponent's retreat. Otherwise, how could an ordinary jonin, who was just a little better at saving lives, let Tenzo, who possessed the wood release, waste so long a time? At this time, Tianzong suddenly noticed a familiar figure, and then a smile appeared on his lips. After spending so many days with Xia Li, he also understood that the other person's arrival here meant that everyone else had already solved the problem. From this point of view, it turned out that he was the one who slowed down the progress of the task. Tianzong took a deep breath, collected his mind, and then began to form seals with his hands. The next moment, the more violent Mu Dun began to attack the mist ninja from all directions. Did this guy take the wrong medicine? Why did he suddenly? The jonin who was attacked gritted his teeth and evaded with difficulty. Didn't they just want that large piece of meteorite in this action? Why did you meet the ninjas of Konoha? Even if he encounters it, the most important thing is why he encounters the legendary Muduan. Although the opponent didn't reveal his forehead protector, couldn't wood release be something that only Konoha has? This made the jounin feel as if he had been unlucky for 8 lifetimes. From the very beginning of the fight, he knew that he was no match for him. He had been trying to defend himself and find ways to escape, but the opponent was very stable and did not give him the slightest chance. Like a cat playing with a mouse, you've had enough and want to end it? The jonin of the mist ninja village kept dodging, feeling a little desperate inside. He wanted to rush forward but couldn't do it. The wood release thing was too incomprehensible to him, and he had no way to deal with it, so he just dodged. It had already consumed most of his energy. However, this more violent Mu Dun seems to have a gap in the originally blocked road. Or does he still have hope? The jounin's eyes glowed with hope again. There was still a chance. At this time, Xia Li was watching the battle below from the highest point, looking at the surging Mu Dun, and was a little bit speechless. If he could deal with it, he would probably only be able to use the Flying Thunder God to escape, because Tianzong knows about his Flying Thunder God. His kunai has no chance to get close to Tianzong and will be blocked by Mu Dun. He is worthy of being the teacher of Class 7 who can temporarily replace Kakashi in the future. He is indeed strong enough. Xia Li sighed and then focused all his attention on the jounin. Then he also noticed that the other party had discovered the loophole, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up. As expected of a jonin, he has good observation skills, but unfortunately, the other party does not know his existence, so, this is a trap. Xia Li held a kunai in her hand, and arcs of electricity continued to appear on her body, especially on her arms and kunai. The surging arcs were frightening. Although Xia Li had not yet developed a lightning kunai, but the development process was not entirely fruitless. The next moment, Xia Li threw the Flying Thunder God kunai with all his strength. The thunder and lightning mixed with the sound of breaking through the air resounded, but it could not keep up with the speed of the kunai. Just as Xia Li thought, as long as the speed was fast enough, most problems could be avoided. Including the sound. However, a jonin is a jonin after all. Although this jonin from the Mist Village has been dodging the attack of the wood escape, his spirit has been in a tense state, and he instantly noticed the kunai. Although the speed and power of the kunai frightened him, he could still dodge it. He slightly tilted his body, dodging, and his eyes couldn't help but look in the direction of the kunai, trying to find the owner of the kunai. According to the jonin's judgment, at this speed, the other party should still be there and have no time to leave, but he couldn't see the other party's figure. The next moment, a creepy feeling came from his back, making the hairs all over his body explode directly. When did the other party appear behind him? Why? The jonin couldn't figure it out, but there was no time for him to react. While quickly forming seals with his hands, he also quickly turned back to see the other party's figure. Xia Li never expected that a kunai could kill a jonin, so the moment the opponent dodged, he had already used Flying Thunder God to come behind him, and with him came Rasengan. Xia Li did not hesitate to press the Rasengan on the back of the jonin who wanted to turn around and was completely unprepared. In order to condense faster, he only used the most ordinary Rasengan and did not apply the basic conversion of wind attributes. Ah! That was the scream of the jonin. The pain caused by the Rasengan entering the flesh and rotating was not low. The jonin's hands, which had not yet completed the last seal, had fallen down. At the moment the Rasengan pressed on his back, his unprepared body was already crushed by the Rasengan. Until the end, the jonin was unable to turn around completely and see Xia Li's figure. Bang! Xia Li looked at the jonin who was smashed into the ground by the violent impact force, and then looked at the opponent's crushed internal organs. He was dead and could not die anymore. At this time, Xia Li relaxed, panting heavily. Although it was only a few seconds from the time he started to fight, his burst had already used up most of his chakra. However, it was all worth it, even if the opponent's condition was not very good, and there was the assistance of Tianzong, but the opponent was also a genuine jonin. At this time, jonin was not so worthless. And he, for the first time, successfully killed a jonin. Even if there were many other factors, who could refute that he did not kill this jonin? At this moment, Xia Li panted heavily, his tense nerves were relaxed, and he smiled. He got the first kill of a jonin. Chapter 97 Mission completed and leaving the team. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Beautiful attack, Mo-ing. Tianzong also put away his ninjutsu at this time. Many of the branches that had grown forcibly retracted to the ground again, and many of them just remained on the ground. For ninja's sake, contributed to the greening of the world. It's all done by the captain. I'm just making up for it. Xia Li also said. Not necessarily. Even without me, you still have a chance to kill him. Tianzong said with a sigh. If he faced Xia Li for the first time and had no information in advance, even he might not be able to react at all. At the beginning, they thought this ability was some kind of unique teleportation technique, but Tenzo later went to the ANBU database to check it, and with his authority, he was able to find a lot of useful information. So he also successfully found a record from the database that was very similar to the technique used by Xia Li. However, that jutsu is the legendary person's ninjutsu. If Xia Li really knows that jutsu, then Xia Li's identity is definitely not as simple as he imagined before. A child of a big family is not worthy of it. Moreover, the legendary ninja seems to have a spherical ninjutsu that condenses chakra. Maybe the relationship between them is even closer, but I don't know, but the hair color is not right, right? After finding out this, Tenzo thought about the identity of the other party, and finally chose not to tell the hyena and fox. Anyway, there was nothing wrong with just treating him as a descendant of a big family. No, it's still a long way off. Xia Li didn't think so. Even if he was a jounin from the Mist Ninja Village, if he was in a state of full strength, his Rasengan would probably not be able to hit him so effectively, even if it could seriously injure him. But it is not certain whether it can be killed later. After all, the Thunder Release Kunai, Flying Thunder God and Rasengan also consumed most of Xia Li's chakra. Tianzong couldn't help but pause for a moment. He felt that Xia Li was good at everything, but he was too serious. He was obviously very powerful at this age. Let's go back, I'll lead the way. Xia Li said and poured out another soldier food pill from the bottle given by the fox. He lifted up a little of the mask and put it into his mouth to chew. The taste of this stuff was really unpleasant. Okay, can't those medical ninjas study more about taste? Captain, the fox gave it to you, do you want it? Xia Li threw the bottle to Tianzong. Foxes. There will be a charge later. Tianzong said after taking the bottle. Suddenly, Xia Li's body froze. Can he spit it out now without charge? There probably won't be any more battles later, so he was wasted. Don't worry. The contribution you can get by killing a jonin is very high, so just feel free to eat. Tianzong couldn't help but smile when he saw this scene. The other person's family background didn't seem to be that good. Should really not be a child of a big family. That's not my contribution alone. Most of the contribution should be the captain's. Xia Li shook his head. Why do I need so much contribution? It's better to just keep it. After all, you're leaving soon, right? Tianzong paused for a moment before continuing. Hearing this, Xia Li was silent. Had everything been guessed? Xia Li's silence also confirmed Tianzong's guess, which made Tianzong a little disappointed, but he still managed to cheer up and said, "So, just think of it as my last gift to you as the captain. I hope you can do it in the future. Furthermore, if possible, don't forget that you were once a member of Tenzo's team." Xia Li nodded silently, feeling a somewhat sentimental atmosphere, and immediately said, "Of course I won't forget it, Captain, you can watch. It won't be long before you can show off to other ANBU that I was once in your team." Team members. Xia Li's confident tone made Tianzong startled, and then he couldn't help but laugh and said, "Then I'll look forward to it." Soon, Xia Li took Tianzong back to where Master Craftsman was. Seeing that stable order had been restored here, Xia Li was startled. Those three genin were quite capable, weren't they? Then, Xia Li discovered that it was their captain who had also come over and started directing them to do things. No wonder, when the three genin saw Xia Li, their bodies froze and they did not choose to stop him in Tenzo. "Captain, Mo-ing." Fox and Hyena shouted excitedly after seeing Tianzong and Xia Li. Although they all believed in the strength of Tianzong and Xia Li, there were unforeseen circumstances and they were always a little worried when there was no guarantee. "You also did a good job." Tianzong looked around and said. "Hey, has everything been resolved, Captain?" The hyena scratched his head and asked. "It's all solved. Mo-ing killed them all, including that jonin." Tianzong said directly without hiding anything. Suddenly, both the fox and the hyena took a breath of air and looked at Xia Li as if they were looking at monsters. He was only 12 or 13 years old, right? At this age, they can kill jonin. What are they doing at this age? It seems like you were catching cats and playing with dogs not long after you graduated. Don't listen to the captain. The captain has already beaten that guy to a pulp. I'm just giving him one last blow. Xia Li said. It's your skill to be able to hit last. If it were us, we wouldn't dare to approach. Hyena gasped again after receiving Xia Li's confirmation. At this time, the leading chunin also heard the conversation here. Looking at the figure who was about the same age as his team members, he couldn't help but feel in a daze. Maybe he heard it wrong. The other party killed the jonin. How is that possible? The gap between people is too big. What do you want? At this time, Tianzong turned around and looked at the chunin. The chunin came back to his senses and told his purpose. He wanted to ask what to do next. The captain of the transport team ran away at some point. Now the rest are just some ordinary people. Should they continue the mission and send them to the Iron Country, or give up? At this time, Xia Li thought about it and told them what he had heard before, including the matter of meteorite iron. Meteorite iron. After Master Craftsmanship came out, he also heard what Xia Li said. After all, they didn't communicate behind Master Craftsmanship's back. I know this, but didn't they say that meteorite iron would be transported later? As he said this, Master Craftsmanship's face slowly turned livid as if he had thought of something. Finally, Tianzong looked at the map. This place was not far from the Iron Country, and he decided to continue the mission. After all, even if he went back at this time, it would not be safe. He couldn't really leave all these people here, right? Still have to send it back. Then, Tianzong and Xia Li whispered something, and then walked into the dark, and Xia Li also started to move. Soon Xia Li led some horses that had been separated before back, and Tianzong made a lot of simple wooden carts, which made the chunin stunned. Where did these come from? So fast. The next journey was not difficult to walk, but very stable. After all, the jonin of the Mist Village was defeated here, and it was not appropriate to continue to send people. However, Xia Li guessed that the other party might have received news of the real meteorite, so the situation has been explained. The meteorite is not here, and this is just a trick. In this case, it is understandable that those samurai are so vulnerable. The elite are not here at all. They have deceived the Mist Ninja and Konoha. I hope so. Xia Li's mouth curled up a smile, because if so, then those guys will be unlucky, and the Mist Ninja will definitely vent all their anger there. Xia Li didn't have a good impression of these people. This is the price of deceiving them. Brother Moing, please come to me more often in the future. I will definitely make the best weapon for you. In the Iron Country, when they parted, Jian Xin Che also waved to Xia Li and shouted reluctantly. How old are you? Xia Li asked. 12 years old, what's wrong? Jian Xin Che also asked with some confusion. Then don't call me big brother, I'm younger than you. Xia Li replied. All of a sudden, the three people in the Tianzang team couldn't help but look over. If it was so certain, it meant that Xia Li was not yet 12 years old. Why did it feel more and more outrageous? Jian Xin Che was also stunned. The other party's handsomeness and strength made him subconsciously think that the other party was older than himself, but, not even older than himself. However, some things have nothing to do with age. Jian Xin Che also shook his head and said, then I will call you boss. It doesn't matter. Well, okay, then I look forward to you making the most powerful weapon for me. Xia Li also smiled and said. Well. It's settled. I will definitely work hard to learn the art of forging. Master Takumi nodded vigorously and waved his hand. Goodbye, boss. Goodbye. Xia Li waved his hand without looking back. Master Takumi smiled at this scene. It would be a win-win situation for Xiao Che to build a good relationship with such a ninja. It was a mutually beneficial thing. Without the restrictions of ordinary people, Tianzang and his party quickly returned to Konoha and dispersed. Xia Li also came to the merit exchange place of the Umbu and selected swordsmanship. These were not expensive, at least far less precious than ninjutsu, so Xia Li did not spend much merit to exchange for what he wanted. From basic sword moves to more sophisticated sword styles, everything is available. Unfortunately, there are no more sophisticated ones, but Xia Li thinks that it is enough for him to practice for a while. In the following time, Xia Li did not leave the team directly, but continued to do some tasks, while practicing his swordsmanship so that it can be better combined with ninjutsu. It must be said that with the deepening of swordsmanship, the use of ninja swords has become more and more handy, and on this day, Xia Li finally mentioned his intention to leave to Tianzang. This also made Tianzang and the other two a little reluctant. They all knew that Xia Li would not stay in this team for a long time, but they did not expect it to be so soon. It has only been half a year. However, no one proposed to retain him. They all knew that it would be a waste for Xia Li to stay here with his talent. You should be able to guess what I am talking about. I am from the Inuzuka family. If you have a chance in the future, you can come to my place and sit down. Hyena patted his partner Hui Fang and laughed. You can buy things from me if you need them in the future, or you can go to the medical headquarters to mention the Tianzang team. I will be there. Fox also said. Thank you. Xia Li nodded and looked at Tianzang. Tianzang looked at Xia Li, sighed, and said, I won't say much. After all, everything I have is here in the Umbu, but if there is something that cannot be solved, you can come to the Umbu to find me. Okay, then, Captain, Senior Hyena and Senior Fox, I'm leaving. Xia Li did not refuse. After thanking them, he turned around and left this team that had occupied a considerable time in his life. After all, he was only 10 years old this year. Everyone in the Tianzang team looked at Xia Li's back, and for a moment they felt a little sad and sighed. They seemed to have really witnessed the rise of a genius. Chapter 98 Konoha Little White Fang, Bloody Ink Shadow. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Soon, Xia Li came to a door, pushed it open and walked in. Here he comes. In the empty room, there was only a man in white wearing a mask, sitting at a desk and staring at Xia Li, speaking without any emotion in his voice. You still have a choice to regret now. You must know that this road is very dangerous. I advise you to train more with Tianzong before coming back. Now that I'm here, I have no intention of quitting. Xia Li responded directly. At the same time, he also knew the identity of the other party. The person with the highest status in the entire Umbu, the minister of the Umbu. Well, according to the instructions of the third generation, starting from today, you will directly accept the mission from me. The ANBU minister nodded without any nonsense, and then threw a scroll to Xia Li. And I heard from the Meritorious Service Department that you are currently choosing swordsmanship. This was left by an outstanding ninja from our ANBU. We also looked at it. It seems to be quite average. There is not much gain, but we think it should be more than that. I hope you can gain something from it. Xia Li was startled, then nodded, took the scroll and thanked him. So, there is a mission here that is suitable for you. Do you want to take it? The ANBU chief suddenly said. Of course. Xia Li's eyes lit up and she said. Yes. Upon seeing this, the ANBU minister threw another scroll to Xia Li and said, go to the side to get something that can prove your identity and then go back. This task can be completed within 10 days, but it is best to hurry up. I will assign tasks to you based on your performance. In short, it was a performance task. Xia Li nodded. Yes. After saying that, Xia Li also exited the room, leaving the ANBU chief sighing alone. There were already many things to do, and now there is one more thing, but the third generation can't refuse the order. Xia Li quickly returned home with his identity certificate and 2 scrolls. Although the ANBU minister said it should be faster, he was not in a hurry and took a look at the scrolls first. Xia Li actually didn't expect too much. After all, there shouldn't be many good swordsmen in Konoha. Soon, Xia Li frowned, as if it was just as the ANBU minister said, it was quite average, not even as exquisite as the swordsmanship he exchanged, but the ANBU minister said that, shouldn't it? Xia Li thought about it, then took a breath, entered the void state, and looked at it from the beginning again, and then calculated and rehearsed it in his mind. The harvest is still not great. It seems, it's just ordinary swordsmanship, not very sophisticated. Sure enough, people who are not powerful will leave behind great swordsmanship. Xia Li thought about the identity of that ninja, ANBU, swordsmanship. What the ANBU minister said was outstanding. According to his somewhat vague memories of his previous life, those who meet this condition, it seems like the best one is, Hataki Sakumo. Xia Li paused when she thought of this, a flash of inspiration appeared in her mind, and her eyes gleamed. It was not impossible. This time, he read the scroll again, and he quickly admitted that he was wrong, because the swordsmanship in it seemed to be quite ordinary, but if ninja was added to it, then only simplicity and efficiency can reflect the characteristics of this swordsmanship. There are no bells and whistles at all, the emphasis is on the perfect combination of forbearance and swordsmanship. Xia Li took a deep breath at this time, her eyes lit up. She had made a profit, and a big profit. However, there are still performance tasks at this time, so it is not suitable to practice immediately. Xia Li suppressed the urge to experiment and put away the scroll, then prepared healing potions, detoxifying potions and soldiers' food pills, and then set off alone. That's right, next, Xia Li will have to go on a mission alone. Other ninjas usually work better with a few people, but Xia Li is different. Xia Li, who has the Flying Thunder God, will not rely too much on the help of his teammates. Moreover, most of his teammates would affect Xia Li's mobility, and this was the path Xia Li decided on. One person is a team. And today, when he completed his team's first mission, it took him 10 days to show off. Oh, 1 day is enough. In the dim woods, 2 ninjas wearing Konoha forehead protectors were hiding behind a big tree, panting. Have you called for support? How long will it take? At this time, one of the irritable Konoha ninja couldn't help but asked, we can't hold on any longer. As he said that, he couldn't help but secretly take a look at the situation outside. These wandering ninjas were really too rampant. They were all the kind who licked blood with their swords. They even dared to intercept Konoha supplies. Moreover, there are too many people on the other side. There are about a dozen Chunin levels, and there is even one whose level cannot be seen, and may exceed the Chunin level. How on earth did these guys get together? The grumpy ninja couldn't help but cursed angrily. They are not necessarily together. They probably learned this information and then got together temporarily. The calmer ninja said, they should be those bounty ninjas. They are chasing us now because they probably want to silence us, but they don't want to missed by Konoha. Then what should we do now? This place is still far away from Konoha. The support is probably. The grumpy ninja said, his face darkening. It seems. Not necessarily. Now that the signal has been sent out, if the person supporting him is that adult, he might be able to do it in time. The calm ninja gritted his teeth and said, the grumpy ninja was stunned for a moment, then his eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but say, you mean, that adult? Yeah. The calm ninja nodded and said, I heard that the adult is also doing a mission nearby, maybe he can see the signal. However, before he finished speaking, his face changed, and he pulled the grumpy ninja back. The next moment, there were several more shuriken where they were just now. Oh, the reaction is good, but that's all. At this time, more than a dozen figures fell on the branches of the trees next to them, and all the wandering ninjas looked at the two Konoha ninjas with cruel smiles, as if the other party had become their meal. Haven't the supplies been given to you? Why are you chasing us? The grumpy ninja couldn't help asking. Hee hee. The leading ninja stretched out his tongue and licked his kunai, then said, we want the supplies, and we also want the ninjutsu on you. That's right, it's really difficult for these wandering ninjas to obtain ninjutsu. It's not easy to get it. How can they give up? The other party is a ninja from a big ninja village. Anyway, the world is so big, just stay away from it after doing this. You can't escape now. The leading ninja said this, trying to break the other party's desperate thoughts, and at the same time, he fell to the ground with these ninjas who had been put together temporarily. Is it going to end here? The calm ninja also had sweat on his forehead at this time, and his hand holding the kunai was clenched very tightly. However, the next moment, he seemed to hear a thunderous sound in his ear. Before he could react to what the sound was, he saw that the leading ninja who had just spoken had been nailed to the big tree behind him by a kunai from the heart, and looking at the smile that was still left on the other party's face, it seemed that he had not reacted at all. What happened? Those wandering ninjas also opened their eyes wide. They didn't see what happened. Why was the companion in front of them nailed to the big tree behind them by a kunai in an instant, and it was at the heart? The next moment, a figure appeared in front of the ninja, and then pulled out the kunai, as if he was a little disgusted with the blood on it, and shook it there as if no one was there. He seemed to feel a little distressed about the gap on the kunai. He didn't expect that the opponent's heart was actually protected, otherwise he should have gone through it directly. Instead of nailing the opponent to the tree, everyone present watched this scene. No one dared to speak, and no one dared to move. Only the cold sweat on the forehead kept flowing, allowing the sword-carrying figure who was probably only about 14 years old to move alone there. The calm ninja looked at the figure dully, and then his face showed ecstasy. We are really saved. Run. And those wandering ninjas didn't know who made a sound, and they scattered directly in all directions and fled directly, as if they would be killed directly if they were a little later. Escape? Can you escape? The person who came was naturally Xia Li. Xia Li seemed to laugh softly, and then his figure disappeared directly. The irritable ninja looked at this scene dully. Just like that, their crisis was solved just like that. Why did he have a feeling of unreality now? And the calm ninja was also trembling with excitement, as if he had seen an idol, and said in an extremely proud tone, this is our Konoha's little white fan, Master Moing. Huh? But didn't I hear that it was bloody Moing? The irritable ninja asked in confusion. You know shit. The master's code name is only Moing. Bloody is the prefix that the master will not let an enemy escape every time he takes action, and usually all of them are killed on the spot. Now most of the enemies run away when they see Master Mo-ing. However, in front of Master Mo-ing, no one can escape. The calm ninja was no longer calm, and glared at the irritable ninja and said, "Oh." The irritable ninja now dared not touch the excited nerves of the calm ninja. That was the other party's biggest idol. If he said something wrong, it would be troublesome. Xia Li had already caught up with a figure and beheaded him with a sword without any difficulty. Then his figure was like lightning, flashing forward. After a flash of lightning, Xia Li caught up with a wandering ninja again, and this time the other party seemed to want to resist. Xia Li didn't care about anything and still slashed down with a knife, and the other party also raised a kunai to defend. However, he looked at the long sword that directly passed his kunai and appeared in front of him, and his eyes widened. His last thought before death was, why didn't he stop it? If you ask why, Xia Li said that the principle is actually very simple. It's just that you raised your hand too slowly. It seems to block the path of his knife, but in fact his knife has passed there and chopped directly at the opponent who has no defense at all. And why is Xia Li so fast? That was just the simplest lightning speed up, but he had mastered it to a higher degree. At that instant of acceleration, the entire sword seemed to be invisible. The shadow of the sword left in place was actually just a residual shadow, and the real blade had already moved one step closer to slash at the opponent. The body of the wandering ninja fell from mid-air, and Xia Li did not stop, but continued to chase the next enemy. Xia Li silently calculated, solved 2, there are still 9. Unknowingly, Xia Li's eyes seemed to hide a blood color. P.S. In the future, it will be changed to 2 chapters, don't get excited, the total number of words has not changed. I am bad at naming and I don't want to think of so many names. If it weren't for the fact that 6,000 words in one chapter is too much, I would have just 1 chapter. If it is increased to 8,000 words in the future, it will probably be 2 chapters, 4,000 words each chapter. As for 10,000 words, that seems unlikely. Finally, the plot of the Dark Department is basically over. Chapter 99 Super-Electromagnetic Gun. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. In the dark forest, it seemed as if the sky had lost all color, and under such conditions, there are constantly figures of ninjas running away like crazy. Why? Why is that bloody ink shadow here? A wandering ninja was cursing as he ran, recalling the legend that the opponent had no defeats and no survivors, and the panic in his heart was already spread on his face. He had known for a long time that he would not take the job this time. From now on, wouldn't he be able to hide as far away from the Konoha ninja as he could see? However, that is if you can escape. In fact, he looked at the approaching figure with despair in his eyes. The speed gap was really too big, it's no longer possible to escape, so might as well. The wandering ninja suddenly turned around, forming seals in his hands continuously, with a twisted look of despair on his face, and shouted, "Try what I have learned all my life." The next moment, a fairly powerful linear flame spurted out from his mouth, swallowing up the figure behind him. Ha! The wandering ninja grinned, as if he had been hit. Even the legendary blood-colored ink shadow was nothing more than that, all false rumors. However, his smile could only stay on his face, because his head had been separated from his body. Xia Li's figure silently appeared beside him and looked at the other party's body. When the other party resisted, he mentioned what he had learned throughout his life and even deliberately defended himself by using the substitute technique. The result, the ninjutsu just now was a sea-level fire escape dragon fire jutsu, right? Sea level. A lifetime of learning. But considering the identity of the opponent, it is not so strange that he is a wandering ninja. It is not bad to be able to learn a sea-level ninjutsu that is suitable for his own attributes. This is the 3rd one. All the ninjas escaping this way have been dealt with, so let's change the direction. The next moment, Xia Li's figure disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he had already appeared in another direction. On the way here, he had already thrown some flying thunder god kunai in different directions, because Xia Li is used to it. Now, enemies basically run away as soon as they see him. As a result, even if he is a speed ninja, it is a bit troublesome to kill them all. Over time, he also figured out how to use Flying Thunder God. When arriving, he roughly simulated the escape routes of those ninjas, and then threw the flying thunder god kunai in those directions. Then after the opponent actually escaped, he chose the direction of escape in the opposite direction to the direction in which he came. Kill them first on the road, and then use the flying thunder god to go to other directions. This is Xia Li's current plan. It's not particularly complicated, it's just that you become more familiar with it after doing it more times. For a year and a half, Xia Li's chakra amount has been increasing in an extremely rapid manner, and as Flying Thunder God continues to improve, the amount of chakra consumed is getting smaller and smaller. Under the conditions of one and the other, Xia Li's use of the Flying Thunder God was finally no longer so severely restricted. Xia Li's figure did not stop for a moment. After pulling up the Flying Thunder God kunai, lightning flashed and his figure once again began to fly at an extremely exaggerated speed. Now Xia Li's acceleration using thunder escape no longer reveals those particularly obvious electric arcs. She only jumps occasionally, and usually only leaves a trace of lightning. Today, Xia Li's control of chakra has become more and more sophisticated. Even though the amount of chakra is already very high, the chakra that should not be wasted will not be wasted at all. Soon, Xia Li also saw 4 figures in front of them. The ones here did not choose to disperse completely. They probably thought they would fight together if they were caught up. At this time, those figures also stopped. Obviously, the other party also realized that he had been caught up. I saw that everyone on the other side had unnatural expressions on their faces. I guess it was because they thought they would be caught up, but they didn't expect him to catch up so quickly, right? The wandering ninjas felt a little broken when they saw the figure holding a sword like a god of death approaching them quickly. They took out the shurikens in their ninja tool bags and threw them at Xia Li as if they were free of money. You must know that wandering ninjas like them are generally greedy for money and will never waste it like this. But at this time, in the face of life-threatening danger, what can't be abandoned? However, the most despairing thing happened to them. The opponent didn't even try to hide, but there were some thunder and lightning around the body. Then their shurikens seemed to encounter some obstacles when they approached the opponent. It was difficult to take a step forward, but instead they started to spin around the opponent, and finally fell into the opponent's hands one by one. That was the ninja tool they had worked so hard to save up to buy. How on earth did they do it? Xia Li looked at the pile of shurikens in his hand. Although they were all shoddy shurikens, if they were handed in, they could get a lot of money, which was pretty good. As for how he did it, the answer is of course magnetism. There is already an electromagnetic field around him. 1.5 years of exploring the electromagnetic gun is not just about learning the electromagnetic gun. There is also room for utilization of the early learning, but of course, if the opponent's shuriken is too powerful, it will be difficult for Xia Li to use the electromagnetic field to completely block it. At this time, he also has a plan to deal with it. There are actually some small iron blocks rotating around his magnetic field, which can be blocked at any time. It can be used as Xia Li's shield, blocking those shurikens. If it still doesn't work, Xia Li's Flying Thunder God can't be used just because it's there. At this time, since the electromagnetic field has been used, then Xia Li looked at the ninjas who had already lost confidence and said, "Don't waste it." If someone was next to Xia Li, they would see a bullet-shaped iron block flying out of his ninja bag and finally floating in front of Xia Li. Xia Li stretched out his hand, and under the horrified eyes of the wandering ninjas, he flicked his finger, and the next moment the electromagnetic field around Xia Li began to rage, and the bullets continued to be accelerated by the electromagnetic field, turning into a stream of light and shooting towards the opponent. At this time, Xia Li's seal had also been completed. Ninjutsu Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique. The next moment, under the desperate eyes of the wandering ninjas, the bullet that was like a cannonball that they could not see with their naked eyes turned into dozens of streams of light shooting towards them. If it was just one, they might still want to dodge, but with so many, they have given up resistance. In an instant, their bodies were pierced by the stream of light and were directly beaten into sieves. Not to mention hiding, the moment Xia Li was ejected, they had already lost the possibility of hiding, and they were too late to make hand seals. Xia Li looked at this scene and thought that if Misaka Mikoto saw this scene, she would probably think that this power was a bit embarrassing, but it was enough for Xia Li for the time being. When the speed reaches the extreme, even if it is used in front of you, can you dodge it? Xia Li looked at their bodies, the blood in his eyes became more intense, and he muttered in his mouth. There are 4 more. As he said that, Xia Li's figure also disappeared from the spot. Xia Li did not check the other party's body, because there was no need. If they could deceive him under his perception, then let the other party escape. At least for now, no one can hide from his chakra perception, because your escape will inevitably use ninjutsu, and since you use ninjutsu, it is impossible not to use chakra. Boss, should we escape? On the other side, a wandering ninja looked at the back and saw no movement, and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and said to the only special jonin in their team, well, it seems so, it seems that the bloody ink shadow is just a rumor. The boss also forced a smile. After all, the rumor that no one survived was too terrifying. If it was just once, it would be fine, but this rumor has been continuing, so they had to believe this rumor. That's right, if you ask me, boss, you are a jonin. In fact, you don't have to be afraid of that hairy boy, just kill him. He should have a lot of good things on him, definitely a lot of powerful ninjutsu. The younger brother next to him complimented him at this time. He didn't dare to let him go back, but if he just said it, the younger brother still had the courage. Not only did he have it, but it was also very big. Forget it, just spare his life. The boss laughed, but he was not confused by the compliment of his younger brother. After all, the other party had really killed a jonin from a big ninja village alone, and his strength was definitely not comparable to that of a wandering ninja like him. Just say it. They can live to this day, which one is not a smart person, and they have a scale in their hearts, but it's a pity that they failed this time. However, soon, the smile of the special jonin slowly stiffened, and the figure stopped and fell to the ground. The wandering ninjas around him were a little confused, but they still followed the special jonin to the ground. At this time, they saw their boss's face full of sweat, as if he had seen a ghost. At this time, they also looked in the direction of the special jonin, and it seemed that they only saw a figure in the blur. Suddenly, their hearts were also shocked. No way. They were just talking. The blurry figure became clearer and clearer as it approached, and soon it was clearly exposed to everyone's eyes. After seeing the figure clearly, like their boss, they also showed disbelief on their faces. Why did the other party appear in front of them? And even waited for them for a while. Is this really something a human can do? They remembered that the other party did not chase them first. Did the other party just fake it and then chase them directly? But this doesn't make sense. Why do they do this? Xia Li looked at the last 4 wandering ninjas in front of him and couldn't help but smile. It's good to gather together. If they gather together, he doesn't need to chase them one by one, which saves a lot of trouble. At this time, Xia Li looked at the disbelief on the other party's face, and naturally knew what the other party was disbelief about. Isn't it just that he appeared in front of the other party? Xia Li shook the flying thunder god kunai in his hand with a smile, and said in an emotionless tone. Congratulations. You chose the worst direction. Chapter 100 Uncontrollable Killing Intent. You are listening at NovelsThe. Congratulations. You chose the worst direction. That the moment Xia Li said this, his figure had already rushed out. The speed shocked the special ninja on the opposite side. He had no time to remind the younger brothers around him and could only retreat. When the remaining 3 younger brothers reacted, it was too late to retreat because Xia Li's figure was already approaching them. One of them looked at the other's figure rushing towards him, and the speed was so fast that he despaired. He wanted to block it, but he found that the other's knife had appeared in front of him. In front of him. A string in his mind seemed to jump, but it was only a jump. Xia Li looked at the wandering ninja in front of him, and did not even give him time to react. Then he skillfully drew his sword and continued to swing it at the wandering ninja next to him. This time, with the previous ninja as a backup, the other party finally reacted and blocked Xia Li's knife with his kunai. Xia Li's mouth curled up a smile. Indeed, if he blocked in the right place in advance, then his lightning escape acceleration would be useless. He would just look invisible, and there would still be a track in the middle, but he didn't only have lightning attributes. The opponent's shuriken was so shoddy that Xia Li didn't think the opponent's kunai would be much better, so, there was no trend of change at all. The direction of the knife did not change at all, and it collided with the kunai. However, the knife that should have been blocked was not blocked, and the kunai was directly pierced by the knife like tofu. The result is self-evident. The knife that seemed to have no obstruction was cut off in an instant along with the owner of the kunai. Looking at the blood floating in front of him, Xia Li's eyes were indifferent. The power of the wind-attributed cutting ninja sword is like this. If you don't attach chakra to the kunai to resist, then unless the material of the kunai is particularly good, you will not even be qualified to block it. In particular, Xia Li's current sword was made of materials that he had collected for a long time and found a master craftsman to make it. Of course, it was mainly the work of the master craftsman. Xia Li's sword was not like a traditional samurai sword. Its handle was not special and was wrapped in black cloth by Xia Li, but the hilt was much smaller than normal, only enough to protect his hands. The most special blade had no bending at all, but was straight and unstoppable. There was also a blood groove on the blade that had been dyed red, which showed its sharpness and danger. At this time, the other person was already scared silly, his pupils contracted, and his forehead was full of dense sweat. Who could tell him why his two teammates had all died in a moment? Is this really something a human can do? Attack? Don't be silly, that's courting death. So, he turned around and fled, trying to seal with both hands, but in panic, the seal of the instant body technique that he was originally proficient in became extremely difficult to seal. Xia Li also noticed the other party's movements, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. One hand accurately pinched the blade of the kunai that was still spinning and flying in the air. The arc on his arm flashed, and the broken kunai blade was thrown out by him. The movement of the wandering ninja's hand stopped. The seal of the instant body technique that only needed one seal to be completed could never be completed. Blood kept flowing from his forehead. The broken kunai went straight through there and finally nailed to a big tree. His eyes gradually dimmed, and finally his whole body fell to the ground. The special ninja stopped retreating at this time, staring at this scene in a daze. How long has it been? Are all his three subordinates dead? Who can tell him? What happened? The special jonin looked at Xia Li's figure, as if he saw a demon existing in the world, especially when the other party looked at him. His eyes were obviously black, but he felt that the eyes were so bright red at this time. Xia Li held the knife in one hand and nodded his head with one finger. He couldn't help it a little bit. The killing intent suppressed in his heart was about to break through the limit. The surging killing intent had been asking him to kill the other party in the most brutal way. This is his problem now. The frequency of killing is too high. If Xia Li kills too much now, he will want to kill more, and the means are getting more and more cruel. Usually, he can suppress it with the state of emptiness, but it is not a solution to continue like this, so Xia Li also knows that he should rest for a while to calm down, but... Xia Li looked at the special jonin in front of him, and the killing intent in his eyes became more and more intense. There is, the last one, so, can you please, die quickly. That the next moment, Xia Li rushed out again with a knife. The special jonin was a bit dumbfounded by what the other party said. How could he invite someone to die? However, he didn't have time to think whether this was rude or polite. He looked at the figure rushing towards him quickly. Every time he saw the other party's speed, he was surprised. This speed was definitely the level that only speed-type jonin could achieve. Ninjutsu. No time to use it, the special jonin could only make a few seals in a hurry. Clone jutsu, that's right, it was the most common clone jutsu, because if the number of seals was too many, the opponent would not give him time to make it. If you use the clone technique, you can probably delay the time of providing him with the seal. The special jonin was thinking, but his eyes suddenly shrank. Xia Li, on the other hand, looked at the opponent's clone and didn't care about it. He just slashed at the opponent's true form with his knife. Clone technique. If it is a shadow clone, then his chakra perception cannot be detected, but if it is just a clone technique, there is only a small amount of chakra in the clone. Of course, it is impossible to deceive Xia Li. Why? In particular, the Jounin's heart is broken. Why can the other party directly see his true self? Even if there is a method to distinguish, most people will not reserve some attention and focus on the clone, right? But Xia Li's knife obviously didn't show any signs of letting go. The special jonin had to temporarily lift the kunai, and he had seen the kunai under his hand being cut off directly before, so chakra also poured into the kunai. Bang! The next moment, Xia Li's knife collided with the opponent's kunai. After a long period of training and natural growth, 12-year-old Xia Li's physique is no longer his weakness. In such a collision, even the strength was not at a disadvantage. The corners of Xia Li's mouth curled up, and while the lightning on the blade shrank, a kunai floated quietly. The jounin in particular shrank his eyes, looking at his kunai that already had a gap. It would probably be scrapped after just a few touches. This was the result of using chakra. No wonder his subordinate's kunai would be cut off directly. However, at this moment, he saw the thunder and lightning on the opponent's sword spreading along his kunai, and his eyes shrank violently. Is there any follow-up? However, the special jounin's chakra resisted it. Although he still felt a little numb in his arm, he could still continue to fight. However, his eyes caught a glimpse of a kunai shot towards him at extremely high speed. Suddenly all the hair on his body exploded. Why is it still there? Isn't the opponent holding a sword in both hands? Where did this kunai come from? Xia Li looked at the special jounin who bent his body and finally avoided the kunai as much as possible. He smiled. He really deserves to be a special jounin. He was able to dodge this attack even after being paralyzed by lightning. Handled kunai, but even so, that's the end of it. At this moment, one of Xia Li's hands had already let go of the handle of the knife, and the next moment, Xia Li's figure disappeared. Flying Thunder God, Xia Li's figure teleported directly to the position of the kunai, and a blue chakra sphere appeared in his hand. At this time, Xia Li looked at the special jounin who was looking at him with wide eyes. The opponent's figure had already deformed while avoiding the kunai, and there was no possibility of resistance at all. Therefore, Xia Li wants to ask, how can you avoid this follow-up? Rasengan. The next moment, Xia Li pressed the Rasengan in his hand directly onto the opponent's face without hesitation. Boom! The jounin's body, especially his head, was directly pressed to the ground by Xia Li, and a large cloud of smoke came out. After a long time, after the smoke dissipated, the subsequent power of the Rasengan also made a big hole on the ground, especially the opponent's head, which had been buried in the ground and was completely invisible. In fact, it's okay if you can't see it. Even if you can see it, you probably can't see it as it is. After all, it's a Rasengan with a face. Xia Li's figure appeared next to the giant pit. He looked at the corpses in the field and his eyes shrank. Sure enough, he was still affected. At the last moment, there was no possibility of evasion for the opponent. He could clearly kill him with a knife. But still couldn't bear the violence in his heart and used the Rasengan, and hit the opponent directly in the face. At this time, Xia Li's eyes were a little complicated. If he continued to kill at this frequency, he might not be able to suppress it even if he was in a void state, so leave the ANBU before it has any big impact on you. Anyway, what needs to be done has been done. In fact, Xia Li originally thought the same way. In the past year and a half, how many missions has he taken on and how many rescue operations has he participated in? Anyway, even if it were divided equally every day, more than 1 or 2 ninjas would die at his hands. The murderous intention that accumulated over time had affected Xia Li unknowingly. Originally, he thought he could avoid it with his own spirit and state of emptiness. But now it seems that he thinks too highly of himself. Also, he himself has received modern education, and the understanding he formed during his more than 20 years of life cannot be changed in the past few years. Therefore, what he is doing now can be said to be completely contrary to his knowledge, so it is not surprising that it has such a big impact on him. Before this mission began, Xia Li had planned to ask the 3rd generation to leave ANBU after completing the mission. He also completed the mission quickly, but he did not expect that there would be another unexpected rescue mission. After Xia Li took a few deep breaths, she disappeared and used the Flying Thunder God again. This time, he was back on the side of Konoha's two ninjas. Lord Mo. The two ninjas immediately said respectfully after seeing Xia Li. It's all taken care of. Just go to those three directions and collect the bodies. Then there will be other support from Konoha behind. Wait for them before continuing to transport supplies. I'll leave first. Xia Li gave the two ninjas directions and left directly without any intention of stopping. Is this solved? The two Konoha ninjas were stunned, and then the calm ninja couldn't help but look enthusiastic. As expected of Lord Mo. And the irritable ninja couldn't help but say, yeah, why is it so fast? It's hard for us to catch up with him in this time, but, why does Lord Mo. Keep his eyes closed? Humph, Lord Mo. Must have his reasons for closing his eyes. Don't you think it's cool? The calm ninja said enthusiastically. Yes, yes. The irritable ninja looked at the enthusiasm of the calm ninja and couldn't help wiping the sweat from his forehead. He always felt that the other party seemed to have become a different person after mentioning Lord Mo.